Chapter 1. A Moment Frozen in Time. The first moment I laid eyes on her, the universe seemed to contract, folding in on itself as if the stars themselves had paused in anticipation. It was the kind of moment that defied the chaos around us, a silence so profound it drowned out the cacophony of the sprawling starport, where countless species mingled, bargained, and hustled beneath the towering arches of steel and glass. The twin suns of Zerithis beat down mercilessly upon the marketplace, their light filtering through the translucent domes and casting kaleidoscopic patterns over a sea of alien faces, each etched with stories written in 1,000 tongues. But amidst the swirl of galactic travelers and interstellar commerce, my attention was captured by a single figure, a woman whose very presence seemed to ripple through the air like a barely contained storm. She stood apart, as though she were both a part of this world and completely alien to it. Her skin shimmered with the iridescent hues of a deep ocean, shifting subtly with every breath she took, reflecting the sunlight in a way that made her appear both ethereal and impossibly real. Her eyes, vast and luminous, held depths that seemed to pierce straight into the fabric of time itself, pools of shifting color, ranging from molten gold to twilight blue, as though the cosmos themselves had been captured within them. She was tall, impossibly slender and graceful, with limbs that moved with the fluidity of a dancer, yet there was a tension in her posture, a coiled readiness, a wary strength born of countless battles fought not just with weapons, but with survival itself. When our gazes met, the world around us dimmed. It was a glance heavy with unspoken histories, with the weight of fears and hopes that neither of us could yet articulate. Then, without warning, she flinched, a small but unmistakable recoil, a sharp intake of breath, and a slight shudder that rippled down her spine. The flinch was instinctive, raw, born of generations conditioned to fear the unknown, to mistrust the touch of strangers, especially those from species that had often been the harbingers of destruction and sorrow. I could see it in her eyes, the flicker of terror mingled with surprise, the instinct to retreat from a world that had so often been hostile. But I was already moving toward her, drawn by a force deeper than reason or caution. The hum of the starport's life, the clatter of alien tongues, the hiss of hydraulic limbs, the distant roar of departing starships faded into a soft murmur behind the undeniable urgency that propelled me forward. Each step was deliberate, a careful dance of diplomacy and empathy, as I sought to bridge the gap between us. My voice, when it came, was low and steady, a gentle thread woven through the tension in the air. "I mean no harm," I said, hoping my words could carry the sincerity that my heart felt. "You are safe." Her eyes darted away briefly, scanning the crowd as though searching for an escape, a familiar face, or a threat. The starport was a maze of shadows and light, a crossroads for 100 different destinies, and yet here we were, two strangers caught in a moment charged with unspoken possibility. Slowly, tentatively, I extended my hand, a gesture so simple yet laden with significance. My fingers brushed a stray tendril of her iridescent hair away from her face, the contact electric yet soothing, like the first warm rain after a long drought. The texture of her skin beneath my fingertips was cool and smooth, like polished gemstone, but beneath that coolness pulsed a fragile warmth that surprised me. Her flinch softened, hesitation melting into something fragile and unguarded. For a heartbeat, the barriers that separated our worlds seemed to dissolve, replaced by a flicker of trust born from human kindness and the universal language of touch. In that instant, it was as though a door creaked open between two locked chambers, revealing a shared vulnerability that transcended species, culture, and history. The energy that surged between us was more than physical. It was a mingling of souls, a resonance that stirred memories and hopes alike, memories of loss, isolation, and the desperate yearning for connection in a vast and often indifferent cosmos. Around us, life continued. Vendors shouted their wares, starships thrummed with the promise of escape, and the ever-present hum of commerce wove a tapestry of noise and light. Yet for that suspended moment, the bustling starport faded to a blur, and all that remained was the fragile bond forming between a human and an alien woman who had flinched at his sight, but whose world was about to change forever. Her eyes, once wary and distant, now held a flicker of something new. Curiosity, wonder, and the tentative beginnings of hope. The lines of fear etched into her delicate features began to smooth, replaced by a softness that told stories of resilience and untold dreams. It was a beginning, a fragile, beautiful beginning of a journey neither of us could have foreseen. But the universe is vast, and its shadows deep. Outside that bubble of newfound trust, dangers lurked, ancient prejudices, galactic politics, and secrets that could unravel everything we had just started to build. Yet, as I held her hand gently in mine, I knew one immutable truth. My touch had changed everything. The moment would ripple outward, altering destinies, forging bonds, and setting into motion events that would echo across stars and centuries. This was no simple encounter. It was the spark of a story that would challenge fears, break down walls, and prove that even in the most unlikely of places, connection could bloom and change the fate of worlds. Her breath caught in a fragile gasp, and for a split second, the entire starport seemed to pause. The clamor of alien voices, the clanking of metal limbs, the distant roar of engines all muffled beneath the weight of that singular moment between us. I could feel the pulse of her heartbeat quicken beneath my hand, the subtle tremble that spoke volumes of the walls built from fear and solitude. She was not just flinching at me as an individual. She was flinching at what I represented, a species that had long been both feared and misunderstood, one whose history was woven with both light and darkness in her world stories. Yet, something about my touch, tentative and careful, seemed to unthread the fears knotting inside her. The shimmer in her eyes shifted, the hues flickering with uncertain hope. I sensed the cold distance melting away, replaced by a fragile trust so delicate it felt like it might shatter with the slightest pressure. Her fingers, long and slender with faint bioluminescent patterns tracing their length, slowly curled around mine. It was a simple gesture, yet it carried the weight of new beginnings. The first bridge between two worlds separated by galaxies, yet united by an ancient yearning for connection. I looked into those vast eyes and saw the traces of 1,000 stories, tales of survival in harsh starscapes, lost loves on forgotten moons, betrayals beneath alien suns, and dreams of a future where fear no longer dictated the dance of life. I realized that beneath her alien beauty lay the same fragile heart that beat in my chest, the same doubts and hopes that defined what it meant to be alive. But the universe has a way of reminding us that every moment of peace is fragile. Before we could fully grasp what had passed between us, the cacophony of the starport surged back like a tidal wave. Alien merchants hawked their goods with renewed vigor, starships thundered in the distance, and the ever-present hum of cosmic commerce resumed its relentless pace. The bubble of stillness burst, and reality snapped back into place. She looked away then, the flicker of vulnerability replaced by the familiar shield of cautious detachment. "I should go," she whispered, voice tinged with both gratitude and regret. "You have shown me kindness, but there are forces here I cannot yet face." I nodded, understanding too well the shadows that trailed her, the dangers that lurked not just in the stars, but in the politics and prejudices of countless worlds. Yet, I promised myself silently, this was only the beginning. My touch had changed everything, not just for her, but for us both. There was a story to be written, a journey to undertake through galaxies unknown and challenges unseen. As she melted back into the crowd, her form becoming one with the shifting tapestry of the starport, I felt an unshakable resolve settle within me. No matter the dangers, no matter the walls built by fear and misunderstanding, connection was possible, and it was worth fighting for. Chapter 2. The Unseen Bonds. The days that followed our encounter blurred into a whirlwind of activity and introspection. The starport of Zerithis was a crossroads of the galaxy, a place where secrets were traded as readily as goods, and alliances were forged or broken beneath the watchful eyes of countless civilizations. Yet despite the bustle, my thoughts remained tethered to her eyes, the fragile trust that flickered so briefly between us, and the unspoken promise that lingered like a whispered vow in the depths of space. I found myself returning to the same bustling market district where we had met, wandering among vendors and travelers, searching not just for her, but for understanding. The alien worlds surrounding Zerithis were complex mosaics of culture and conflict, and every corner held a story waiting to be unraveled. I learned that she belonged to the Solari, a proud and ancient race known for their grace, fierce independence, and the haunting beauty of their bioluminescent skin. The Solari carried histories of exile and resilience, marked by centuries of conflict with rival clans and outside empires. To them, trust was earned through trials, and even the lightest touch from a stranger could spark suspicion or fear. Yet, beneath the layers of tradition and caution, the Solari were a people who longed for connection as deeply as any other. I sensed that she, like many of her kind, carried a burden, a story woven from loss and hope, silence and rebellion. Her flinch had not been mere fear of me. It was the echo of a lifetime of struggles, the scars of wounds that words could never heal. Meanwhile, my own presence in Zerithis began to draw attention. Word spread quickly of the human who had dared to touch a Solari woman, breaking centuries of taboo. Some viewed it with suspicion or disdain, others with curiosity and cautious hope. In a galaxy fractured by distrust, my simple act had become a beacon, an unexpected spark igniting conversations about unity, empathy, and the possibility of bridging worlds. As I navigated this complex web of cultures and politics, I was drawn into the Solari's hidden enclaves, secret gardens where ancient trees pulsed with light, and whispered legends of old heroes who had crossed boundaries to change fate. It was there I learned that my touch had stirred not just an individual, but the very heart of a people longing for renewal. But the galaxy is never at peace for long. As alliances formed and old wounds began to mend, shadows gathered on the horizon, forces determined to keep the divisions alive, to exploit fear for power and control. The fragile bond between us would be tested not just by distance, but by danger, betrayal, and the unyielding demands of survival. Yet, in the face of looming storms, one truth remained clear: my touch had changed everything. And now, together, we would face whatever the stars had in store. The days stretched on like a slow tide washing over the rugged shores of a distant world, each one layered with new discoveries and subtle shifts in the atmosphere between us. The Solari's world was a symphony of contrasts, shimmering bioluminescent forests that whispered ancient secrets in the night, cities carved from crystal and stone that glittered beneath twin moons, and a culture rich with poetry, ritual, and unspoken codes that shaped every interaction. I found myself drawn into this alien landscape not just as an outsider, but as a witness to something fragile and extraordinary: the gradual breaking down of barriers built over centuries of mistrust. She remained cautious, that much was clear. Every glance she cast my way was measured, every word carefully chosen. Yet beneath that careful armor lay a growing flicker of trust, fragile as the first green shoots after a harsh winter. The moments we shared were quiet but profound, marked by small gestures: the brushing away of a stray leaf from her luminescent hair, the exchange of stories beneath starlit skies, the silent companionship of shared danger as factions hostile to our fragile alliance prowled in the shadows. The Solari themselves were an intricate tapestry of clans and loyalties, each with its own history and grievances. Some elders regarded me with suspicion, whispering of ancient betrayals and cautionary tales of outsiders who came bearing gifts only to sow discord. Others, particularly the younger generation who dreamed of a galaxy without the weight of old wounds, watched with cautious hope. Through them, I glimpsed a future where species might rise above their histories to build something new, but it was a future still fragile, easily shattered by the storms gathering on the horizon. Every day brought new challenges. The political machinations of rival factions sought to exploit our fragile bond, using fear and rumor to turn allies into enemies. Messages intercepted hinted at assassination plots and subversive acts designed to drive a wedge between us. In the midst of this turmoil, I realized that my touch, that simple act which had changed everything, was also a beacon for danger. The connection we shared was not just a symbol of hope, but a target. Yet in the quiet moments away from prying eyes and whispered threats, she revealed parts of herself that few had seen. Stories of exile and loss, of a family torn apart by war and betrayal, of a deep longing for peace and belonging. I listened with the patience of someone who understood that trust was not given freely, but earned in the crucible of shared vulnerability. And as our bond deepened, so too did the realization that our fates were now entwined, that to protect her was to protect something far greater than either of us alone. One night, beneath the shimmering canopy of the luminescent forest, as distant stars cast silver light over ancient stones, I reached out once more. This time, there was no flinch, no hesitation, only a steady warmth as our hands met, fingers intertwining in a promise forged against the backdrop of a galaxy divided. It was a touch that spoke of unity, resilience, and a shared courage to face whatever storms lay ahead. But the galaxy never rests. As our connection grew, so too did the forces arrayed against us. The past refused to stay buried, and the price of change loomed ever higher. Yet in that fragile union, we found the strength to defy the darkness, a spark bright enough to kindle a new dawn. The fragile threads of trust we wove under the soft glow of alien moons were constantly tested by the harsh realities pressing in from every side. Political intrigue and ancient enmities lurked beneath the surface of the Solari society, threatening to unravel the delicate harmony we sought to build. Rumors spread like wildfire, whispers of forbidden alliances, secret meetings in shadowed halls, and the ever-present fear that our bond might be exploited by those who wished to see the galaxy remain fractured. Every step forward was met with suspicion, every gesture scrutinized for hidden motives. Her people had lived in the shadow of empire and rebellion, their history etched with cycles of oppression and defiance, loss and survival. Yet, amidst the ruins of ancient wars and fading legends, a new hope began to stir, a hope kindled by the unlikely connection between a human and a Solari woman. This connection was more than personal, it was symbolic. It challenged centuries of distrust and challenged the rigid divides that had kept species apart. It was a whisper of unity in a galaxy screaming with conflict. But hope came at a price. Threats against us multiplied, covert assassins slipped through the darkness, political rivals sowed discord, and forces loyal to old powers moved to crush any sign of change. Our alliance became a beacon for enemies determined to extinguish the fragile flame before it could ignite a revolution. Each day brought new dangers, forcing us into a precarious dance of secrecy and vigilance, where every moment of peace was hard-won and often fleeting. In the quiet moments stolen between storms, she revealed her vulnerabilities, a past marked by betrayal, exile, and the pain of a people yearning for a future free from chains. Her strength was both a shield and a testament to the resilience of a species shaped by adversity. I, too, shared my own scars, the loneliness of being an outsider, the burden of hope resting on unsteady shoulders, and the courage to reach beyond fear and history to touch something true. One evening, under a tapestry of stars woven by twin suns and distant galaxies, we stood together on the edge of a cliff overlooking the bioluminescent forests. The air was thick with the scent of alien blooms and the promise of renewal. Our hands found each other again, steady, unwavering. No flinch this time. Just the quiet power of two souls daring to bridge a chasm wider than worlds. "We are more than the sum of our pasts," I whispered. "Together, we can change everything." Her eyes shone with a fierce light, reflecting the stars above and the fire burning between us. "Then let us be the spark that lights the way." Chapter 3: The Shifting Stars. The galaxy beyond Zerithus was a living tapestry of shifting alliances, ancient grudges, and uncharted dangers, a place where stars themselves seemed to dance to the tune of unseen conflicts. As news of our union spread, it rippled through the corridors of power and the shadowy enclaves of revolutionaries alike. Some hailed it as the dawn of a new era, a beacon of hope in dark times. Others saw it as a threat, a dangerous fracture in the fragile order that kept the galaxy's many factions balanced on a knife's edge. Our journey took us across star systems steeped in history and strife. We visited planets where towering citadels rose above neon-lit cities, their inhabitants wary and watchful. We navigated through nebulae thick with the remnants of forgotten wars, where ghost ships drifted silently among the cosmic dust. Everywhere we went, eyes followed, curious, suspicious, or openly hostile. In the midst of this turbulence, our bond grew stronger, forged in the fires of adversity and tempered by shared resolve. Together, we faced emissaries of distant worlds, navigated political intrigue that threatened to tear alliances apart, and fought battles not only with weapons, but with words and ideals. The galaxy was a complex web, and we were learning to weave our own threads into its fabric. Yet, the more we embraced this new path, the clearer it became that the forces opposing us were vast and relentless. Old enemies conspired in the shadows, and new ones rose with ambitions that threatened to engulf everything we had built. The fragile peace we sought was constantly tested by war drums echoing across star systems and whispers of rebellion that could ignite at any moment. As the stars shifted above us, so too did the fate of those who dared to dream of unity and change. But in that swirling storm of uncertainty and danger, we held on to the one certainty we had forged with our touch, that together, we could face whatever the galaxy dared to throw our way. The galaxy was a vast ocean of stars and shadows, its currents shaped by alliances forged in hope and betrayals etched in blood. As we traveled from system to system aboard the starship that had become both our refuge and our battleground, the weight of our union grew heavier with each passing light year. The Cellari woman beside me, once distant and guarded, had become a beacon of strength and compassion, her eyes reflecting not just the light of distant suns, but the fierce fire of a spirit unwilling to be broken. Our arrival on the planet Kael'thar was met with suspicion and veiled hostility. The world was a crucible of political power, ruled by clans whose allegiances shifted like desert sands. Here, old grievances simmered beneath polite greetings, and every word carried a double meaning. We were outsiders, symbols of change that many feared. Yet, through careful diplomacy and shared vulnerability, we began to weave threads of trust with leaders weary of endless conflict. The nights were often the hardest quiet moments, stolen between endless negotiations, where doubts gnawed at the edges of our resolve. I found solace in her presence, the steady warmth of her hand in mine a reminder that even in the darkest voids, light could flourish. Together, we shared stories beneath alien stars, tales of lost homes, battles fought, and dreams yet to be realized. Each tale deepened our bond, forging a partnership that transcended the divides of species and history. But shadows lurked close. Agents of rival factions whispered warnings in darkened corridors, and rumors of assassination attempts sent ripples through our fragile coalition. One evening, a violent skirmish erupted near the city gates, an ambush that tested not just our defenses, but the very loyalty of those we called allies. The battle was swift and brutal, forcing us to confront the reality that trust was fragile and enemies were closer than we dared imagine. Amidst the chaos, the Cellari woman showed a fierce, unyielding courage that inspired those around her. Certainly, here's the continuation of Chapter 3, The Shifting Stars, with immersive long paragraphs and rich narrative detail. The galaxy around us was a restless sea, its currents shifting beneath a surface of polished diplomacy and brutal conflict. Each system we traveled through brought new faces and fresh challenges. Emissaries draped in silks woven from nebula threads, hardened mercenaries who measured trust with the cold calculus of survival, and shadowy factions whose loyalties flickered like dying stars. The sprawling political landscape was a mosaic of alliances as fragile as glass, and beneath every alliance lurked the ever-present threat of betrayal. Our journey was not just a voyage across light years. It was a passage through the tangled web of ancient grudges, whispered conspiracies, and the hopes of countless worlds yearning for peace. Together, she and I moved through this intricate dance, learning to read the silent language of suspicion and desire, of power and vulnerability. Our presence, a human and a Cellari woman united, was an anomaly, a living symbol challenging the entrenched boundaries that had long divided species and nations. Some hailed us as harbingers of a new dawn, emissaries of a unity that could heal old wounds. Others viewed us as dangerous disruptors, threats to the delicate balance of power that kept empires intact. Every port we visited bore witness to this duality. Some doors opened wide, while others slammed shut, echoes of distrust and fear lingering in the corridors. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on our shoulders. We carried not just our own hopes, but the fragile expectations of those who saw in us a chance for something better. As the flagship we traveled aboard, a vessel newly restored and humming with latent power cut through the starfields, I found myself wrestling with the enormity of what we had ignited. Every alliance forged was a fragile thread woven into a tapestry that could unravel with the slightest pull. Every step forward was shadowed by the fear that all could be lost to the tides of war and treachery. Amidst the political storms, moments of quiet respite grounded us. Beneath alien moons and amidst bioluminescent forests, we shared stories and dreams, discovering in each other a sanctuary from the galaxy's relentless tumult. Her hands, once so guarded, now intertwined with mine with a certainty born from shared trials. In those moments, the barriers erected by species and history fell away, revealing the raw humanity beneath the alien beauty. Yet, danger was never far. We intercepted whispers of conspiracies, plots to divide our fragile coalition, assassination attempts cloaked in shadows, and battles brewing in sectors far beyond our reach. The more visible we became, the more determined our enemies grew. Our journey was no longer just about hope. It was about survival in a galaxy hungry to reclaim its old order. One evening, as the flagship hovered near a war-torn planet scarred by decades of conflict, alarms shattered the quiet. Sensor arrays flared, detecting a fleet massing beyond the planet's orbit, an armada bearing the colors of a rival faction, intent on crushing our fragile alliance before it could fully form. The countdown to confrontation had begun. Kale, standing at the helm, felt the familiar surge of adrenaline mingled with steel resolve. "This is it," he said, voice steady as the ship's systems hummed with readiness. "The galaxy will test our bond. But no matter what comes, we face it together." As the stars blazed with the promise of battle, she took his hand, her gaze fierce and unyielding. In that moment, amidst the shifting stars and looming war, they were not just survivors or diplomats, they were the spark lighting the path toward a future where fear could be replaced by trust, and alien worlds could unite in the face of darkness. The galactic winds howled like restless spirits through the void as the celestial phoenix, the ship that bore us across star systems, edged closer to the war-torn planet of Casimir V. The tension on the bridge was palpable, the air thick with anticipation and unspoken fears. The rival faction's armada had gathered, a dark cloud of warships and fighters poised to strike and crush the fragile coalition we had painstakingly built. Every sensor ping, every flicker of the tactical holograms, spoke of the storm that was about to break, an avalanche of fire and fury that could either forge our alliance anew or shatter it forever. Kale stood at the helm, his jaw set with iron resolve. Beside him, the alien woman who had once flinched at his touch now radiated strength and fierce determination, her glowing eyes locked on the distant fleets with unwavering focus. The bond we had forged was our greatest weapon and our most vulnerable secret. It was a fragile flame in the cold vastness of space, but it burned with a ferocity that no enemy could easily extinguish. The first salvo erupted like a thunderclap, plasma bolts streaking through the darkness, illuminating the void with streaks of brilliant color. The celestial phoenix shuddered under the impact, its shields flaring to life as turrets swiveled, unleashing retaliatory bursts that tore through enemy formations. The battle was brutal and unforgiving, a deadly ballet where every move could mean survival or destruction. Within the chaos, alliances were tested and true colors revealed. Some of our newfound allies fought with valor, their loyalty tempered by desperation and hope. Others faltered, their hesitation a crack through which enemies sought to exploit. Kale and his team coordinated the defense with precision born from countless trials, weaving strategy and instinct into a tapestry of resistance. Amid the din of combat, moments of quiet courage shone brightly. The alien woman moved through the command deck with grace and authority, her presence a beacon to those who wavered. Her touch, once a source of fear, now commanded respect and inspired hope. Together, we fought not just for ourselves, but for the future of countless worlds longing for peace. As the battle wore on, the rival armada began to falter, their assaults losing coherence under the relentless defense of the celestial phoenix. One by one, enemy ships broke formation, retreating into the star-streaked darkness from whence they came. The victory was hard-won, but it sent a clear message across the galaxy. A new force had risen, united by trust forged in fire and adversity. Chapter 4: Flames of Destiny. In the aftermath of battle, the celestial phoenix sailed through a galaxy forever changed. The scars of war marked the ship's hull, but so too did the unbreakable spirit of those who had stood against the darkness. Kale and the alien woman stood together on the observation deck, gazing out at the stars that stretched endlessly before them, the canvas upon which they would paint the future. The fragile alliance had survived its greatest test, but the road ahead was long and fraught with peril. Political intrigue simmered beneath the surface, old enemies plotted in shadowed corners, and the question of trust remained ever present. Yet, within that uncertainty burned a fierce hope, a promise that from the ashes of conflict, a new dawn could rise. Together, they would face the challenges to come, their bond a beacon of unity in a fractured galaxy. The touch that once sparked fear had ignited a fire that would reshape the destiny of worlds. As the celestial phoenix charted a course toward the heart of the Empire, Kale spoke softly, his voice carrying the weight of resolve and hope. No matter the darkness ahead, we carry the light within us. This is our legacy, and it will burn bright. The alien woman smiled, her eyes reflecting the fiery glow of distant suns. Then let us be the flames that light the way. The celestial phoenix glided through the vast expanse of space, a solitary flame cutting through the cold darkness, its battered hull a testament to battles fought and survived. Inside, the atmosphere was charged with a mixture of quiet determination and restless anticipation. Repairs were underway, crews moving with the practiced urgency born from necessity, their hands steady despite fatigue. The scars of recent combat were fresh, but beneath the surface, a deeper transformation was taking place, one not marked by metal or circuitry, but by the unbreakable bonds forged in fire and trust. Kale stood at the heart of the command deck, his gaze drifting across the constellation of stars beyond the reinforced glass. The galaxy was no longer a silent void but a stage upon which their story was being written, one of unity against division, of hope in the face of despair. Beside him, the alien woman who had once flinched at his touch now radiated a quiet strength, her presence a steady beacon for all who sailed with them. The soft glow of her bioluminescent skin cast gentle patterns on the consoles, a living reminder that even amidst chaos, life found a way to bloom. Their journey ahead was daunting. Political factions maneuvered in the shadows, each wary of the power the celestial phoenix represented. Messages intercepted hinted at plots to undermine their fragile coalition, whispers of betrayal that could shatter alliances before they could fully form. Yet, in those moments of uncertainty, the bond between Kale and the alien woman stood firm, a symbol not just of personal connection, but of the potential for entire worlds to transcend fear and hatred. Together, they navigated through treacherous negotiations and delicate diplomacy, their combined voices carrying the weight of experience and sincerity. They spoke not only of survival, but of renewal, a galaxy where differences were bridges, not barriers. Their message resonated with many, inspiring a wave of support from planets long divided, from communities yearning for peace. But the path was never smooth. Sabotage and ambushes became grim reminders that the forces of old order would not relinquish power easily. In one harrowing encounter, a covert strike aimed at the celestial phoenix's core systems nearly crippled the ship, forcing Kale and his team into a desperate race against time to restore critical functions before disaster struck. It was in these crucibles of crisis that true character was revealed, where fear was overcome by courage, and hope was forged in the heart of adversity. Amidst the chaos, moments of humanity shone brightly. Quiet evenings under alien skies, shared laughter in the face of hardship, and the steady warmth of a touch that spoke louder than words. The alien woman, once wary and distant, now stood beside Kale not only as an ally, but as a partner bound by unbreakable trust. Their story became a beacon for others, proof that even in the darkest reaches of space, connection could ignite a revolution. As the celestial phoenix approached the imperial capital, A sprawling metropolis of towering spires and gleaming starports, the weight of destiny settled heavily upon them. The galaxy watched, breath held, as a new era dawned, one where the flames of change burned bright, lighting the way for generations to come. Kale turned to his companion, voice steady with resolve. Whatever awaits us there, we face it as one. Our legacy will not be forgotten. She smiled, eyes shining with quiet fire. Together, we are the light that will guide the stars. The celestial phoenix sailed steadily toward the glittering heart of the Empire, its battered hull a symbol of resilience and hope against a backdrop of cold stars. Within its walls, the crew prepared for what was to come, not just a confrontation with old powers seeking to quash change, but a reckoning with the very destiny they had forged together. The alien woman stood beside Kale on the observation deck, their hands intertwined, their gazes fixed on the swirling nebulae and distant worlds that awaited their arrival. As the ship slipped into the Imperial system, transmissions flooded the comms demands, warnings, and offers of alliance. The galaxy had taken notice, and the fragile threads of unity they had spun were now the center of a cosmic storm. But Kale and his companion knew that their bond was stronger than fear, their cause brighter than any darkness that threatened to engulf them. When the celestial phoenix finally entered the Imperial capital's orbit, the city below was a dazzling maze of light and shadow, towering spires entwined with ancient monuments and futuristic arcologies. It was a place where the past and future collided, where every stone bore witness to triumph and tragedy alike. They were not merely returning. They were heralding a new chapter, a promise that the galaxy's fractured peoples could rise beyond their divisions. Standing before the assembled leaders and representatives of the Empire, Kale spoke with a voice both humble and commanding. He told of the journey, a journey of fear and courage, of connection and defiance. The alien woman beside him shared her own story, the tale of a people longing for peace, of trust slowly rekindled from ashes of suspicion. Their words echoed through the grand hall, weaving a vision of unity that stirred hearts and challenged old orders. Resistance was fierce, and shadows lurked among the gathered dignitaries. But the power of their shared story, the undeniable bond between human and alien, ignited a movement that could not be silenced. Across the galaxy, systems pledged allegiance not to old regimes, but to a future born from trust and hope. As celebrations erupted in the streets and new alliances were forged, Kale and the alien woman stood apart for a moment, looking toward the stars. The touch that once sparked fear had grown into a flame that would burn for generations, a legacy of courage, connection, and change. Together, they stepped into the light of a new dawn, knowing that while the journey had been long and fraught, the story was just beginning.